to V3 Gundogs compound.
It was muted.
Oh, it was muted. So all you saw was mouth moving.
Don't worry about our producer. He's
I will
okay.
spill out the stuff once again. A lot of technical difficulties. I'm sure things will come up along the way. Please bear with us. Welcome to the V3 Gundogs compound. I'm Jeremy from V3 Gundogs. We are filming with DIT Outdoors. We have Dave here from DIT Outdoors. And today's video is going to be talking about game birds use in the dog training world, and game birds in general when it comes to hunting, raising, whatever it takes. And we have the individuals that specialize in this at Stead Fast Farms. We got Jared and Alex.
That's us.
So today what we're going to do is basically the video is going to be a lot more geared towards the game birds. Jared and Alex are going to talk a lot about the different types of game birds, the uses, how they raise them, expectations for each bird, how they fly, how they handle in nature. But I want to reiterate to you guys that we are live. Please send us questions. Just type them in there. We'll receive them. We got Dan behind the camera running the computer. He's going to filter the questions to us. So we want this to be a mostly question and answer. When things come up, slide us the question. We'll get them best answered for you guys. As Stead Fast Farms talks about the game birds, I will chime in and talk about the dog training aspects of each bird. And we got Dave here who will chime in on the hunting side and just drink his whiskey and look pretty for us. All right, so I'm going to pass it off to our boys from Stead Fast Farms and let them get their intro going, and we'll start talking about the birds.
Appreciate it, Jeremy. I'm Jared. This is Alex. We're with Stead Fast Farms. We're located in Bethlehem, Connecticut. That's out on the West Coast, although we are out here in Lebanon today, more on the east side. So we don't mind traveling even if it's freezing rain out. We've been in Bethlehem, Connecticut about 6 years now. We're going into our 6th operational year. And we mostly grow the top 3 game birds that you see when you go out into the fields: your pheasant, your chukar, and your quail. We also do occasionally carry pigeons. It's in high demand. We'll talk about pigeons in training as well. We are a veteran and operated business. Every game bird we sell, we take a portion of our revenue. We collect that annually, and annually we like to give back to vets and first responders. It's called our Vets and Friends Hunt. If you don't follow us on Facebook, if you don't follow us on Instagram, if you don't follow us on our website, go ahead and follow all 3 of those. Our Vets and Friends Hunt, we hold on preserved property. So if you're a veteran or a first responder, you can come out, hunt without a license. We provide finished dogs. Jeremy comes out with his finished dogs. He runs them, you hunt over them, we provide lunch. It's a great day. We built some camaraderie.
How many years have you been doing that now? Because I know it's been a while.
4 years?
Yeah, I think we just had our 4th year.
Nice. How many people do you guys usually have there that show up that are hunters or spectators or people in general that help out, and where do you guys usually hold that?
So I'll tell you, our first year we actually did it on a public land, and I think we had about 12 people that came out. Nice. Since then, our 4th year, which was this past year in 2021, we did it before the hunting season started in Connecticut because, again, we were on preserved property. That's Woodbury and Southbury Fishing Game Rod and Gun Club out in Morris, Connecticut. They're a customer of ours, and they had been generous enough to donate their preserved properties to support that event, along with many other businesses that have jumped in and supported those.
They got
like V3.
And they got a pretty decent piece of property, because when I've been there,
300 acres.
Yeah, 300 acres. It's pretty continuous with some roads that split up the fields. But when I run my dogs there for the event, I find that because the property is so big, like it's a nice flow of time and people.
We're
and
able to
birds.
accommodate more participants that way too.
Yeah, exactly. Now, as far as the crowd goes, do you see a lot of like veterans, first responders, a mix of the both, or more than one or the other? And what's kind of like your goal with the event?
Yeah, so last year, so our 4th annual year running it, we had 35 veterans and first responders come out. And obviously that's grown since 12 years. But I mean, really the idea is to get veterans, first responders out. We have UTVs available because we have a huge age range. We have them as young as 22, as old as I think 82 was out there last
We
year.
might have some disabled.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And just some disabled vets, you know, and first responders that might not be able to get around as easy as others.
Yeah, and in the future, we're looking to add a couple of track machines to the operation
nice.
as well, where we can accommodate guys that are really more severely
You
handicapped.
think this is a good time to drop our secret for what we're planning?
There is something up and coming in the works for this year's Vets and Friends hunt. We're partnering with V3 Gun Kennel, and I don't know, you want to drop it or?
Yeah, why not? I mean, it's going to happen. So
So
might
this
as well get
year-
people-
Well, how about before we get to the super secret?
All right, maybe we'll hold that for the end.
Yeah, all right.
We
We'll hold the secret.
What do you want to say, Jerry?
We will say every year, no matter how many of the participants, because of our partners and local businesses that have jumped in to support the veterans and first responders as well, every participant has gone home with a raffle prize. And we've had a wide range of different raffle prizes, anything from time with Jermey here at V3. He's donated his time in some sessions. We had Sport Dog. They donated a training collar for somebody that wanted to start using a training collar with their dogs.
Shotguns.
Two shotguns from
That's awesome.
I'm sure that drags a lot of people.
Yeah, right.
absolutely. And
Firearms.
Tom's Firearms donated a shotgun, and P&G in Watertown also donated a shotgun.
I honestly think that what we are planning is definitely something very different that supersedes a lot of other events, because it's something special not only for me, but something that's near and dear to you guys' heart as well, because you guys are dog owners and hunters. And being a past first responder myself, and you guys being veterans, we always try to find a way to give back to people who we, you know, are involved with frequently. So I guess you want to tell them what we have planned. It's in the works, guys. So we're trying to square everything
You
up.
might as well. You got this.
Yeah.
This year at the vet hunt, we plan to provide one lucky veteran first responder with a well-started bird dog.
Holy crap! That's awesome.
Jeremy will be doing the training.
Is there a breed, or is it a breed of choice?
So right now we're kind of filtering through breeds and breeders, and we have some options out there. I've contacted a bunch of breeders.
Yeah.
So we're looking at labs, we're looking at pointers, we're looking at Vizslas, and we have some options out there that we're just trying to make sure we find the best fit, because we know that. We know that not everybody is capable of knowing how to handle these dogs, right? So we want to make sure we pick the right breed and breeder that will help with that process. But, you know, and at the end of that, obviously there's going to be some time given to spend with me and the dog to make sure that
follow
everything's
training
right.
and make sure the dog and the owner get off on the right foot. Training collar, kennel, the whole works. You'll be able to
Sweet.
have a really good start in upland hunting.
So, your farm. What you guys got going on the farm?
Yeah, we got some birds.
Just some birds? How many birds are you guys holding out there?
So we do about an average of 15,000 birds, live birds for field hunting annually.
Do you guys start from the egg, or you work from the chick, or?
Yeah, so as we're growing, we've started with just day-old chicks, so we bring those in, and they all come from NPIP hatcheries, and we import them here into the state of Connecticut, and then we grow them out from day-olds. With our facility growing, we just put up a new building this year. We're going to start holding our own breeding stock, mostly for quail. And as we get into it, we'll talk about why we want to hold birds year-round. But the idea is so we can provide birds year-round, because obviously, and maybe you don't know, but birds are seasonal. So they only lay at certain times of the year. So we only get eggs. We can only hold those eggs so long.
Yeah, it's definitely beneficial for guys like myself that, you know, we're running a business year round.
Right.
We don't have a time off. I don't have a time off, at least. I know a lot of trainers out in New England, they kind of shut things down in the winter, but I think there's a lot of importance in continuing education for the dog and as the owner. So it's nice having guys like yourself that carry through with the birds through the off season, to make sure guys like myself have the capabilities of purchasing these birds and using them for the dog training.
Sure. And I don't know where all our viewers are from today, but I know here in Connecticut, for the most part, our season goes from October until February. But even within season, your birds are done laying. So if you haven't already accounted for the birds you're going to need for the season or training year round, then good luck finding birds.
Yeah. So what would you guys say is your most popular bird on the farm?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them.
That's big. That's big.
Do you find it changes like early in the season? More people want quail or pheasant, or does it change that way, or just
It
always?
seems like people always want pheasant.
Okay.
Why is that?
It's just, I think, the bird they think of when they think upland. It's the bird that the state stocks, so
There's
maybe
more
people
meat
want
with it,
to.
too, so
Yeah, more
that's
meat
what
for your
I
money.
What I was gonna say.
They also take the longest to grow, and they're available the latest of our bird stock. So that kind of, I'd say,
They're the hardiest too for you
Yeah.
keep your winter time and everything as well.
So the other birds we do a few rounds per year of.
So what's the grow rate? I
pheasants
know
is
you just
one
brought up the grow rates. What are the grow rates between a pheasant, a chukar, and a quail? Because as a dog trainer myself, like I know we've been doing business together for a while, for 4 years almost, and I know when to expect birds from you guys. But I'm sure some of our listeners out there don't understand the grow rate and like when to expect birds, how to expect birds, because there have been times where you guys sell out and you're like, listen, we don't got birds because we're growing,
Yeah, so a lot of that has to do with what you're using the birds for, and I think we'll jump into that as we kind of jump into each type of bird. But for the most part, if you think about a bird in the wild, right, they come out of the egg and they already have down and they're running around, they're cruising, because all of these birds, they're laid on the ground. It's not like they're going up to a tree and they're laying nests. They're all ground birds. They're all
I think that's definitely something people think.
Yeah, they nest, but they nest on the ground.
They nest on the ground,
Yeah.
right? So like, I think that's definitely an issue that we'll talk about down the road when it comes to flight patterns and stuff like that. But I think that's definitely a misconception. A lot of people, when you think about game birds, they don't really think that the birds are on the ground.
Yeah.
Probably the number one question we get asked is, are your birds flight ready or are they ready to fly? And that's a loaded question, because it doesn't matter what species of game bird you look at, whether we're talking about pheasant, and there's more than one type of pheasant out there, and the same goes for partridge, the same goes for quail. They are all ground birds. They prefer to run rather than to take flight.
Absolutely.
The only time those birds are going to take flight is when they're startled or they're threatened. And they're only taking short distance flights to get up, get to a new area to get more cover, and then get right back down.
And that's kind of where we use them for prey drive, right? For our dogs. We like that little bump and chase game that those birds give us. And obviously we'll talk more about it when we start tapping into different breeds, but there's definitely something to be said about the bump and chase when it comes to the different types of birds between the quail and the chukar. I don't typically like to talk about pheasant when it comes to training dogs.
Yeah.
It's a bit much.
Yeah. Unless you're doing NAVDA and you need a trail, we need to drop a bird and drag it for a track. But outside of dog training, I don't really use the pheasant. But yeah, that bump and chase game, that flight pattern that you're talking about, where they fly short distance, regroup, and then we can send the dog on that group again, especially if they've been well trained to be steady, and we can move them through some coveys.
Yeah, and
So we got a question.
We got a question, guys.
Mr. Montero asks, are all pheasants in Connecticut stocked? Do we have a native population of pheasants or any game bird?
So yes, all pheasants in Connecticut are stocked. We have wild populations of ruffed grouse and wild populations
very small on the
very
rough grass.
small, and also bobwhite quail were endemic to Connecticut. I don't know how many.
Yeah,
wild,
probably not anymore.
The hawks and the birds of
the
prey.
woodcock,
have
migratory.
Really, woodcock are migratory. But the birds of prey have really put a damper on our local wild populations.
Even
of
rough
birds.
grouse. I mean, you guys might have some up around your guys' area.
Once in a while.
Probably further north, right? The
I've-
northeast corner.
I've killed one.
North,
I've killed one when I was 17, so 22 years ago in Brooklyn, Connecticut. Seen one about 5 years ago in Chaplin.
Yep.
And
Probably.
I saw one about 10 years ago in Northfield.
So-
and I've seen one covey of wild quail.
The question was from Mauricio, who was a client of mine, current client of mine, who's watching. And that was a great question, because a lot of people think that they could bump into a wild pheasant. Now,
Yeah.
granted, we have holdovers,
Right.
right? Like somebody just posted on that CT hunting page that they bumped into some wild pheasant in February. Man, that's crazy that the bird can last that long with so many predators out there between the coyotes, the fox, the bobcat, the hawks, the owls.
And it speaks wonders to their natural camouflage.
Yeah.
And also their natural instinct to find that cover.
Absolutely.
To stay away from those predators.
And how the farmer grows them.
Yeah. So, and if you want to talk about wild birds and you want to put your dog on wild game, I would definitely start educating yourself on the woodcock, because I find a lot of excitement
They're
with.
a lot of fun.
Yes.
A lot of fun.
I find a lot of excitement not only for myself but with my dogs, like hunting those crazy types of covers.
And this year was a good year.
Yeah,
And
and
they're also more of a challenge for the hunter.
But-
The way they move and the way they fly.
and they are migratory though, so you can't expect when the hunt season opens up that you're going to get out there and start bumping into these woodcock.
Right.
You have to there's a bunch of websites out there with migratory charts tracking where they are, because these birds are caught when they are hatched, and there's trackers put on these birds. So there are federations out there that are tracking them to give us their migratory patterns. So definitely get on those websites and find where the migratory patterns are. And you, especially you, Mauricio, where you are in Connecticut, you'll find that there's definitely a lot of population cutting out your way in the northeastern portion of the state, especially anybody that's near river beds and whatnot.
Right.
But if you're looking for more wild game, I'd definitely start focusing on educating yourself with the woodcock migration.
Take some road trips.
Right.
Road trips up to Maine,
Yeah.
get some grouse.
The
great
grouse
thing-
out west, you can find some wild pheasants out
Dakotas,
there.
North Dakota, South Dakota.
The great thing about a woodcock analytics from your end is that, at least from my experience, is the first point they always hold. Like they'll most of the point always sit there. So if you have a young dog that's looking for a bird that you're trying to work on steadiness, that first point on a woodcock they'll always hold. The second one they don't always hold. The bird will take off. But in my
So
experience,
it usually differs, and I think it's because, and this was from a recent experience almost 2 to 3 years ago with a buddy hunter of mine who I helped train as Vishla, and we were running our dog out at Nathan Hale State Forest. And actually, the best time in Connecticut if you want to get on woodcock with your dog is finding out when they're migrating back north.
Right.
So it's the off season. You can't hunt them, but you could train your dog on them. Bring a blank pistol out there with you.
March, April is great.
Yeah. So we ran our dogs in Nathan Hale State Forest, and man, we bumped into probably shit. It was probably 20 plus woodcock, but these birds were tired.
Well,
Because they're migrating.
absolutely.
So
Yeah.
they would fly 30, 40 yards drop. So like I can see in your standpoint with a very young dog, you can get a bump and chase with these woodcock.
Sure. Yeah.
With a young dog, and there is definitely something to be said about putting your dogs on wild game.
Sure. Yeah. Even going out to the Dakotas, like my two dogs that I have now, the first year of their life, each of them I went out to the Dakotas.
Yeah, absolutely.
Just a week and a half out to the Dakotas. It's worth its weight in gold.
So us at V3 this past year was our first year doing it. I remember you guys know about it. I don't know if you remember me talking about it, but this year we brought up 4 client dogs with us to a trip to Maine for a chance for clients' dogs to be put on wild grouse and woodcock. And man, I'll tell you right now, we didn't shoot a lot of birds, but we saw 36.
Well, it's so thick up there.
It's not
It's
only
hard to
thick,
get
but
shot.
don't forget we're dealing with very young dogs. The first
Yeah.
time these dogs have been on this game,
Yeah.
so we saw a lot of game. But the dogs were learning, which was the most important thing. That's why we went up there, was to make sure the dogs were learning and getting on game, and we were hunting new areas, new spots, and putting the dogs out there on these birds. And that's definitely something that you need to do. And I didn't put my phone on silent. Dan's gonna yell at me through the camera, and it's my girlfriend.
Kind of a little breakdown.
I'm gonna throw my phone over there.
How many do we have watching?
15 we bounce around between
Nice.
10 and 20.
10 and 20. So just
Anybody else have any more questions?
Yeah.
I posted asking if anybody else had any more questions. We'll probably stick to this for about another 10, 15 minutes. One question that I'll tee up is, if you're in New England, what state has the best opportunity for wild birds? Any game bird.
Maine, buddy.
Maine, yeah.
New Hampshire's getting
Repeat
better.
the question.
Maine, by all means.
So Dan's question, if you didn't hear it because he's behind the camera, is if we had to pick a state to get the dogs on wild game
In
in
New
New England, which state would it be? And I think the majority of us, if not all of us, agree that Maine is probably the best state to get your dog
The
on.
North Woods of Maine are just out of this world.
Yeah, because they also stock pheasant up there, so you can get your dog on pheasant if you wanted to. You need to buy tags, but you can also get your dog on the grouse and woodcock.
Well, so alternatively, though, if you don't have, the capability of going up to Maine, taking a road trip, or you can't get away that long, it's nice that here at Stead Fast Farms, we do carry those birds, mostly partridge and quail, year-round. Obviously, training, the season is continuing. And there are regulated dog training areas within the state of Connecticut that are public, and some are private if you belong to a club. And you can come and purchase birds and then take them out to those regulated dog training areas on the off season and train your dog.
There's a lot of private clubs in Connecticut that have authorized dog training areas where you can stock all year round. July you might not want to, but you can do it all year round if you wanted to.
Yeah, and then obviously if you don't have those capabilities, or you might not be a member of a gun club that has a dog training permitted area, you definitely reach out to somebody like myself or another trainer in your area and say, hey, I'd like to get my dogs on some birds and get trained properly and handle the birds properly and learn how to actually put these birds out. So I guess we can jump into the meat and cheese of our discussion, the reason why we are here, which is the game birds, right? Sure. Birds you guys raise. Let's talk about each breed, what you guys do with the breed, your expectations with the breed, what you guys want to understand, other people to understand about the breeds, and we'll just kind of go from there and we'll start chiming in back and forth. And then obviously everybody out there watching, please drop your questions as we go. Dan's going to filter them to us.
So if all game birds were the same, right, then why would we grow 3 of them? Right. At least the 3 main ones, right?
Right.
So we offer.
Yeah, we'll get some
we're
more.
getting close, yeah. They're doing talking, I'm doing drinking over here.
I haven't heard any slurring yet.
Dan just wanted to make a cameo.
Oh, yeah, this tastes it.
I
What are
think
we
this is-
drinking, by the way, Dan?
Oh,
Can you
yeah.
show the
Yeah,
camera what we're drinking?
Bird dog.
Make sure you put a hashtag on it.
Bird dog whiskey. Contact DIT Outdoors, not V3 gundogs. I'm feeling at my best side.
Yeah.
But so jumping back to the game birds, right? It's great that we're kind of finally connecting the dots because we're the game bird farmers. We're growing the game birds. You've got Jeremy over here. He's the dog trainer. He's working with the dogs, and then we've got the handlers watching. And there's a reason why Jeremy uses the game birds that he does in his training program. There's a reason why we grow more than one type of game bird, and that's really what we're going to jump in and discuss today. So I don't know, do we want to start from like a young dog and we'll talk about the game birds that's advantage that
So
way,
let's talk about the young dogs, and let's talk about, because I think that might be easier for people to process and understand on how and when we use the different birds.
Yeah.
Sure.
So on the dog trainer's perspective, and listen, am I a professional dog trainer? Yes, but my way is not the highway. I'm not saying that my way is the perfect way. I'm just saying it's the way that I know works best for the way I handle dogs and the way I've seen dogs work for me. So this is how I do it. If you have another way or you have ideas, please reach out to me. I love learning new things. I'm constantly learning new things. So please give me a call, shoot me a message, tell me, hey, heard you say X, Y, and Z. Think about doing it this way next time, and I'd love it. But, so puppy, people call me, hey, I have a 15, 20-week-old dog. I want to get the dog on birds.
Yep.
Right? What do you guys think is my first approach with the birds? And then I can correct you.
Well, intuitively, you think you'd want to go a little bit smaller because you don't want to start with a dog.
Okay.
But that would be just.
So definitely not a pheasant.
I mean, unless it was a dead pheasant, would be my opinion. Because you don't want something that's going to blow up in front of an 8-week-old puppy that's going to scare the shit out of it.
Absolutely.
First, I'd ask what their exposure level has been this far.
Sure.
Is it the very first time the dog's seeing a bird?
Yes. Yeah, and that's usually my first question is, what have you done with your dog? Because there are a lot of people that try to do it themselves, right?
I guess we
And
should back up. When do you recommend starting? Like what age?
15 to 20 weeks is when I like people coming to see me, but that's for the first bird exposure. Now, I want people calling me when they bring this dog home, so I can tell them how to start their obedience, start the communication with the dog, start exposure with the dog, because it's too many times people come late and then there's problem fixing, troubleshooting, and then starting the training program. So with a 15, 20-week-old dog, people come out to me and the first thing is obviously, like Alex said, what's the dog exposure? If they have no exposure, great, no problem at all. Like Dave said, we definitely don't want to use a large bird because we don't want the bird popping up in their face and startling them. Definitely agree with that aspect, which is why we don't use pheasant. All right, pheasant are large, they're cumbersome. The dog's mouth isn't mature enough to be able to grab onto the pheasant, walk around with it comfortably, and all you do is cause discomfort to the dog, where the dog just says, "I don't want to pick this up anymore." Yeah, catch, even if the bird is dead. But yes, if the bird is alive, you're going to catch a spur, you're going to catch a wing, whatever it is. Me personally, at V3 Gun Dogs, we like using Chukar. And the reason being is because, number one, they're not a large bird, but they are decent. They are a good sized bird.
They got a lot of smell too.
Right. They stink. Yeah. Quails stink too, but the Chukar are just big, right? The Chukar, though, I like being able to take all the flight wings off.
Yep.
Right? Both sides. Flight wing off. And the biggest thing I'm trying to do is prey drive.
Yeah, sure.
Right? So with prey drive, I'm trying to get the dog to chase.
Yep.
I don't necessarily...
So you want that bird to run.
Run. Now, quail aren't going to run, right? They're going to run like 5 feet, and then they're going to try to dig themselves a hole.
Yeah, squat down.
And then hide. And then the dog becomes like, oh, okay, the bird fell into a hole, I'm just going to walk away from it. So with the Chukar, I can pull all the flight wings off, let that thing run, and man, you know, that dog, I want that dog chasing.
Yep.
I want that dog chasing until that dog catches the bird, puts the bird in their mouth, and then we praise the shit out of that dog, right? That dog runs around, burning their mouth, all happy, heads high, tail wagging. We don't take the bird out of their mouth, and we do it again. We do it again, and we do it again. So I like the Chukar to start the dogs off with.
Yep.
So what do you guys do with your Chukar that make them so good?
We got a question.
We got a question.
Question.
Mr. Montero, what off-season training do you suggest to keep the dog's mind active during winter? Or actually, you could probably say during the off-season.
During the off-season, which is usually, you know, you got your winter, spring, and summer, right? That's usually your off-season. So it really is going to be dependent on your weather, right? So if we have a lot of snow on the ground, we're not going to be able to do a lot of bird work. So that's where I focus on obedience and fetch work. You might have a dog that needs some cleanup on obedience. You might have a dog that needs some cleanup on fetch. But then when the snow melts, then we can start focusing on steadying up your dog.
Yeah.
Learning how to handle around birds, staying steady through the flush, through the shot, through the retrieve. So that's kind of the process in the off season.
And I've seen people, I don't know if you would recommend it or not, or if you think it might build bad habits, but a lot of people shed hunting with their dogs in the off season.
Now, do you feel, and Wilson, actually, that's a question for you. Would that impede the ability to find pheasants? Because as you're pheasant hunting, is the dog also going to be like, ooh, there's a deer shed here?
My worry would be
deer?
start chasing deer. But,
right.
My buddy has a couple of labs that he shed hunts, and he doesn't have any
Now, is that
problem.
breed
There's balls on that. So I want you had a good thought running there with Chukars.
Yeah.
So that are we good with answering Mr. Montero's question?
Yeah.
Off season.
Yeah.
All right. So we're good with that. So you were teeing up Chukars.
Yeah.
Right.
What do they do with their Chukars? Right. Something.
Yeah.
So
So
something
I want to circle back on the dog.
So you guys are raising Chukars at your place. What makes the Chukars so good that I need 50 to 100 Chukar a week from you guys?
Wow, that's awesome.
Oh yeah.
Do you have a hold pen too?
Yeah, I got something that holds them.
Just to jump back, we're talking about Chukars. So Chukar fall into the partridge family.
There you go. So it's a partridge, which is like a grouse.
And something that
They live in pear
whatever game bird we're
Something
talking
in a
about.
pear tree.
Is that what this was?
That's typically your red leg or your Hungarians, also in the partridge family, and that's why they say pear tree, because they tend to climb it. But again, they're a ground bird. But whether we're talking about pheasant, we're talking about partridge, or we're talking about quail, there are tons of varieties within those species. So the ones that we grow most often for pheasant, most people either call it the common pheasant or the ringneck pheasant. Here in partridge, we're talking about Chukar, and the quail, we talk about the northern bobwhite because it was at one time native to this area.
Yep.
But now digressing, talking about Chukar, which is a type of partridge. So these birds have, they're about a pound. So they're a little bit bigger than a quail, but they're a little bit smaller than a hen pheasant. Depends how long and how much we're feeding them over at Stead Fast because they eat a lot. Yeah. But these birds hold very tight to the ground. Yes, they like to run, but they will take flight if they are spooked or if there's a lot of pressure on them. But their flight pattern is very interesting, where they're going to go straight up in the air, usually about 10 to 15 feet, and then that's when they kick it in a high gear, and they're going across the field.
They take off like a helicopter.
That is definitely a great aspect in when we start moving through the puppy phase, right? So the puppy phase, we clip all the wings, the bird's not flying, right? Basically running on the ground.
Yep.
Then I get the dog a little bit older where, okay, now the dog is using his nose, pointing the bird, or whether it's a flushing dog like a lab or some sort of spaniel. Then we start pulling just half the wing, right? So we have one wing that we're pulling, so the bird flies a short distance, right? So then you have more of a bump and chase game. Dog's chasing bird, lands 15, 30 yards away, and they get to rehunt that bird. But what I like about the Chukar, when the dog starts maturing through the process, where the dog is starting to understand game, understand stop on first scent, understanding that I have to walk in front of them, flush the bird, and they got to stand the process. That Chukar is great because they do launch up and then out. Right. And I'll tell you now, on our 40-acre piece of property here, I've had neighbors tell me, hey, I got these birds roaming around my land. But yeah, well, those are quail and those are Chukar, and this is why they do that, because this is, their nature.
Dave, that's my property next door.
Okay. What days are you not here?
I'm here every day.
So from Stead Fast, what do you guys do to make sure that they're flight-ready birds? Because, you can buy birds from anybody, but what makes you guys stand out? Like, if I buy a bird from you, what makes me say that it's going to fly great and I can hunt over it?
So it's
most importantly, we're not going to sell them to you if they're not flying well.
There you go.
And I have had you guys tell me every time there's
unless we will be upfront if it's something where a dog trainer doesn't really care.
Bird, dog or whatever you need.
And you guys have been very upfront with me, where it's like, hey, Jeremy, they're very young, they're very slow, whatever.
Nice.
And that brings us back to the natural instincts of the bird. Like I said, they come out of the egg running around. By 2 weeks, they're flying. In our brooding barn, you can go to our Facebook, they're flying 30 feet from length to length. But they're a very small bird.
Sure.
Especially the Chukar, we like at least 12 weeks on them to build up their endurance. Because we start all our birds in a brooding barn. They're all temperature controlled. We've got to get them to acclimate to the weather that we have in New England, which can be unpredictable at times. But during the summer when it's hot, about 4 weeks old, they're going outside to the flight pens. We also grow chicks as late as October. We get that last bunch because we want to carry it year round for our customers. Then we might hold them a little later, 7 weeks, 9 weeks. But once they go outside, they are outside in the flight pen. It doesn't matter if it's freezing, we got -6 temperatures, high wind, rain, snow, they are outside. That's how we get them acclimated to the temperature, the weather, the survival, and they start building up that endurance of flying those flight pens.
Weather-wise, because I know it kind of affects me and what I do with the birds. I'm sure it affects some clubs that might buy the birds from you guys. Do the birds, when they grow and mature, how do they handle rain?
So
they get wet.
They get wet.
So most birds, game birds included, have what's called a preen gland. It's a small gland in the back of their rump above their tail, and you see birds preening. They're pulling their feathers through.
Kind of like they're cleaning themselves.
They're excreting oil through that gland. Okay. They're taking that oil and they're spreading it on their feathers.
Kind of like what ducks do in the water.
And it's the same thing. Once they are of an adult age and those oils really start flowing in their body and they're producing it well, the rain rolls right off. And most of our flight pens are covered. The only thing that's not covered is the pheasants, and we grow thick cover for them.
They're pretty hardy anyways.
Yeah, they're pretty hardy. And
even with the cover,
they're standing in the rows in the rain, and they really.
Look at them out west.
Yeah.
They could care less.
Yeah.
20 inches of snow, they don't care.
Yep.
And I've never really had an issue with the Chukar in my property. I mean, they stand through the weather pretty well.
That's pretty good because they're not known as a hardy bird.
Yeah. Well, the issue is going to.
Yeah. Right.
The issue is going to be the predators, but that's outside of my control.
Let's circle back. Finish up the phone on the shed antler. Let's go for another.
You got a question?
We have no more questions, but I know I interrupted Alex in the shed.
No, just
antler. So finish that.
That's a good one.
Let's go for. We've been going for 45 minutes. Let's go for another 20 minutes just in case Central Time Zone is catching up.
Okay.
If we don't see a spike, we're at 17 right now. If we don't see a spike in about 20 minutes, we'll go ahead and wrap up the live version and
Finish off the recorded version.
Yep.
I mean, the only thing I'll throw out there to kind of jump in with Alex's shed hunting and what to do with your dog in the off season, besides bird work, is just getting them out into the woods, exercise.
Yeah.
Just because it's not hunting season doesn't mean you let the dog stay in the house,
Swimming in the
dog
sun.
on the couch. I mean, training is constant, whether it's obedience or it's bird work.
Yeah.
I was just gonna say it's a good question for Jeremy. It's like, so somebody who doesn't have a dog, they get a dog, they spend a year and a half with you, they get their dog, steady the wing shot and fall. Are they done for the rest of the dog's life? Like, can
No.
they just bring the dog home and now their dog's done, or
I have
is
a
it a
nine-
lifelong?
I have a
commitment, or-
9-year-old dog in my kennel. Granted, he's not a champion or anything like that, but he is probably one of the better hunting dogs that I've owned, and probably one of the better hunting dogs that a lot of my family members and friends have hunted over. But we're constantly cleaning him up.
So it's a lifelong commitment. You don't just
Absolutely.
get a dog, you train it, you're done.
No, we're definitely working on it.
Yeah, no.
You got another question up?
So Ked asked, do dogs that have only been exposed to farm-raised stocked birds have trouble working with wild birds?
Absolutely not.
No. I mean, so the wild game odor, there's something to be said about how the game is held at the game farms, right?
Yeah.
So you guys have flight pens raised off the ground, correct? So when they poop and pee, because it's one thing, right? They pee and poop
Yeah.
together. It's not like
It's
one.
an acid.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We can hold that thought of why we do it.
Yeah. So the birds are raised off the ground, right? So it's very important to find a game bird farm that does it that way, because then the birds aren't going to be the dog is barking.
Yeah.
It's dinner time.
Yeah, it probably is dinner time. So the birds that are raised in those raised pens aren't going to have the poop and pee on them as the other farms might have when the birds are raised on the ground, right? So they're trying, for these farms like Stead Fast Farms, they're trying to simulate that wild odor, because the wild game is constantly moving. They're not living in their poop and their pee all the
They are
time.
exposed to the elements.
They're exposed to the elements constantly. They're expected to be wild, right? So they have to learn how to be handled around predators. And don't forget, your dog, when you hunt over wild game, your dog is a predator.
Right.
You are a predator. So if you are walking through the woods with your dog, these birds are going to react the way they would react over coyotes, hawks, owls, bobcat, wolves, wherever you're hunting, right? So your dog is going to handle just the same over the wild birds, but they're actually going to learn a lot more, because they're not going to be able to close the distance like they would be able to from a pen-raised bird, right? Because granted, pen-raised birds, you guys do your best to try to keep them away from human interaction so that they have some wild flight to them.
Yep.
So I know our farm opinion is coming from Steadfast. Are there farms that do things incorrectly that could have a negative effect?
I'm sure there are. I'm
not looking to name drop any bad farms, but
Well, I mean, I guess
you guys are doing something.
So
You think you're above standard?
Right.
Absolutely. I mean, we try to raise the most naturally wild bird as you can get. But if you think about something earlier that we said, game birds want to run.
Yeah.
They don't want to fly. So one of the main reasons, besides keeping the birds clean and hygienic in raised flight pens, is now we're exposing them out of their cover. So we've got predators on the farm, and we've got people on the farm. And when they're exposed and they don't have that cover, they're forced to flush. So now when we crate them up and we bring them out and we release them into the wild, now they're involved in even more cover, but they've been grown to say, okay, I flush more often than I run. And that's what we try to do with the raised flight pens.
Yep.
Something we do with the pheasants that we do probably the opposite of industry standard is most game bird farms with their pheasant, they're gonna put blinders on them. Most people surprisingly don't know about it, but it either goes through the beak or it clips onto the beak, and it really blinds them from the front. And the reason that they do that is because you're raising a lot of game birds in a very small space, and pheasants especially are cannibalistic. So they will put blinders on those birds to keep them from picking their feathers, so you don't end up with a pheasant with no tail, or they kill them in the pen. So early season, it's very easy to not have to put peepers on them, because we can grow cover, and the pheasants are going to get out of the cover. We cut lanes in there so they experience lower cover as well. In New England, we have terrible winters, and when that first frost comes, it lays down the cover something fierce. So depending on how many birds are left in the pen, we may end up peeping them at that point, because again, we don't want to give you a bird with no tail. Sometimes it's unavoidable and they're just going to do it anyway, but for the most part, our birds throughout the season go unpeeped. Imagine trying to drive a car with only using your side mirrors. It's kind of hard to drive. Well, think about a pheasant that's been blinded from the front the whole time, and now you want it to fly straight and fly fast.
So to kind of answer the question, which was, is your dog going to hunt wild game or point wild game? The short of the long answer is they are going to hunt the wild game, whether it's point and flush, right? But how your dog is going to do it is going to be different, because they're going to learn through that experience. So your 20-yard point or 15-yard or 10-yard point over, caged birds may, through experience of your dog, may end up becoming a 30, 40-yard point on wild game, right? You understand what I'm trying to say? Because the birds are going to hold different, and your dog's going to learn through that experience of bumping these birds.
So I'd say it's more a factor of the birds may behave differently, which is going to show in your dog differently.
Sure.
But your dog's working and hunting the same. He wants to find those birds just as much as a stock bird or a wild bird.
And what we try to do, and I guess this starts talking about equipment, right? And what I use for training. I start using equipment to start training the dogs how to handle around that order, right? So if I'm planting the chukar or the quail in a launcher, right, I'm going to find the wind direction, find the scent cone, and anybody that hasn't seen the video yet, please check out the video talking about how the scent cone works. It's on the DIT Outdoors channel as well as the V3 Gundogs channel. I kind of give a good simulation with using a smoke bomb, how wind direction affects scent and odor travel. So basically I try to figure out wind direction, and I set the dog up where as soon as the dog shows me they are catching scent and they're entering scent, I'm using that launcher to teach the dog that scent equals birds.
Right. Do you lay a foot trail down too?
No foot trail. I don't want any.
Relating back to the previous question that you just made me think of is another variable that might cause a different response in the wild birds as opposed to the pen raised birds is your part as the handler planting those birds. We'll see a lot of times people will buy birds. They'll take the birds out of the truck, go put them in the field, walk back to the truck, get the dog, release the dog.
What do you think the dog does?
Running around looking for where the scent is, or they're following your scent back to where you dropped the bird.
So that's exactly what I think Dave was trying to chime in on.
So you have to kind of keep in mind,
dogs are
how do I make this a more wild
Yeah.
experience with this pen raised bird?
The dogs are smartasses.
Yeah.
They really are. They try to find shortcuts.
Yeah.
Because don't forget, their primitive nature is the easiest way.
Yeah.
What is my easiest
That's all
way?
animals, right?
Yeah.
Path of least resistance.
Think about, exactly. Cats, dogs,
Deer.
squirrels, deer, mice, whatever. They find path of least resistance.
I can give you a good example. I belong to a club in Eastern Connecticut. We got about a 1,500 acre farm that we can stock every Wednesday and Saturday. Now it's mostly cornfields, so we got edge cover, which is kind of a bit of a pain in the ass with the multifloral rows growing. But the stockers put the pheasants in the exact same spot every stock.
Yep.
My dogs walk out and they just go hoop bird, hoop bird. They don't care if there's a smell. They don't care on the wind direction.
Yep.
They're just like that pile of multiflora rose has a bird on it. Regardless, we're just gonna find a bird there.
Yep.
And it's like clockwork. They're just like, all right, it's Wednesday morning. We got to go find the birds that are just put down.
So I see it all the time because I use a UTV to run out to the field, right, and plant birds with the launchers and stuff. So I see it all the time where I need to be more cognizant as a trainer when I'm running dogs, especially alone, coming from a different angle, because that dog, you see it like, and we help train police dogs as well, and we had that similar issue with a dog we were doing tracking with out here, where the dog took first scent on a UTV trail rather than my trail that I laid down.
You gotta give that dog credit.
You know, so they're smart. They take the path of least resistance, and the dog knows, like, at the end of this trail, he's going to get his reward. So he chose the UTV trail rather than my footpath. So it's the same thing with the hunting dogs. The hunting dogs are going to take the path of least resistance, which is human odor. If he knows I'm going to go plant birds out, which every dog in my kennel understands that when I take them and put them in the box, that we're going to hunt birds, right? So when I go put birds out, they're like, okay, Jeremy just put birds out. How do I get to the birds?
So would you fly him in at that point? Like,
yeah, I would drop him by helicopter.
No, I mean just like let the bird go. Try to let it like shake it a little bit, get a little dizzy, and let it go.
So with an older dog that I'm not going to use launchers with, that I can sleep a bird, what I'll do is I'll shake them 13 times. It's my lucky number. That's
13, really nice.
13 times. And then I chuck it right into whatever we got for tall grass, away from me, so that this way I can bring the dog in on a different angle and he's not catching any of my odor scent. Now, granted, he's probably getting some of my human odor because we are going crosswind, but I'm trying to keep it as realistic as possible. Now, it would be nice if I can use like a drone, right?
Oh no,
tie a bird to a drone, drop it, boom, and then that's more.
Coming next
I just meant like
coming next year, V3 gun dogs, bird dropping with drones.
I mean, you misunderstood. Flying a bird, just letting it go, let the bird fly in naturally. I mean, you only have 40 acres, but still, you lose a few.
Our plan here, because we are new here, we just obtained this property in September. So our plan this coming year for the season is to have a couple quail houses, which I think might tap into our next topic is quail. We will have some quail houses set up where we can release 100 quail on the property, hopefully 100 quail.
You're also close to Mansfield Hollow, which is the regulated dog
training area,
right? So you can take advantage of like a field trip.
Yeah, and you got the field trial areas in the state of Connecticut, like Flaherty.
Flaherty's great for running.
Look on Flaherty's website for their event schedule. Definitely.
Don't do that because everybody. I like to hunt there.
Yeah,
so don't look at their schedule.
Weekdays. It's only open to the public on weekdays, correct?
Unless there's a field trial.
Right.
Because I thought every weekend was a field trial.
Unless there's some week-long field trials.
There's never any birds when you go there, though, so don't bother going.
Yeah, don't listen.
Horrible idea.
It's horrible. They never mow it. It's full of briars. Don't even go.
Just come to V3 Gun Dogs.
So if I could kind of
go ahead.
back an idea.
Go ahead.
I think probably a lot of our viewers here, when they're not here, when they buy birds on their own and they go out to a regulated dog training area or they use their property, there's something to be said about how you're planting the birds, because we just talked about dogs being smart enough to follow your scent, right? So you have to understand, one, the flight pattern of that bird that you're using. So Jeremy, you mentioned that you used launchers, right? Launchers is a great tool to now take some of the way that a bird might fly and have a little more control over it, right? Because we talked about Chukar, they're going to hold tight to the ground. You have to be on top of that bird. It has to be feel a lot of pressure before it's going to go up.
Sure.
Right? Where some other birds are a little different, but we don't want to have them bust prematurely and lose that training opportunity with our dog. So a launcher is a great way to kind of have more control over that flush and then make sure they do flush and they don't run.
But if you are out there watching and you are thinking about obtaining launchers, don't try it on your own as a first go-to, because I'll tell you right now, you'll be calling me, telling me that your dog is scared of the launcher.
Same thing with a shot collar.
Yeah,
a lot of these tools you can
Is that a video idea right there?
Video idea.
Launcher?
How to use launchers coming to you this summer.
Launchers and shot collars.
a lot of the tools used in
How to screw your dog up in 2 seconds.
I should have shotguns in all four.
So
That would be a good. Hey, you get a lot of videos if you did that.
Don't give our ideas.
We gotta have Bishop here though for doing that.
Stop telling them everything.
Guys, like and subscribe, and we're gonna subscribe.
We get 10 subscribers next.
And we can convince Jeremy we're gonna take his UTV and we're gonna jump it 30 feet in the air.
If we could get 1,000 subscribers in the next 20 minutes, I will put a shot collar on and let Dan do whatever he wants.
Oh boy, I'm out of here for that one. I ain't watching that.
So, just to go back to the launchers, if you are thinking about using a launcher by yourself, definitely go to somebody that has used them before. It doesn't have to be a trainer like myself, but somebody that you know who has put dogs in front of launchers that know how to use them. Because I have had dogs come to me that just don't like the launcher, and it's because it's loud. It shocks the shit out of them, especially if they haven't been introduced to a launcher before. And I'll be honest with you, our COVID dogs suck. They, right, you're a vet.
Across the board, they suck.
Like they just suck in general, and it's because there's a lack of exposure. And with that lack of exposure comes a lot of confidence issues. I have a Vizsla in my kennel right now that has a lot of confidence problems, and literally this morning was the first day of 3 weeks where I saw that dog's tail go from tucked to high, where he was confident enough to go out there and run around and be with the other dogs. But these COVID puppies that we have, socialization is an issue, because they haven't been brought out to public, they haven't been introduced to loud noises, cars, and these are things that people don't understand affect the dog's maturity through a training process. You know, that launcher, when it comes up, it makes a loud sound.
And that's if you don't hit the beep button.
And that's if you don't hit the beeper button by accident if you're using a DT Systems or a Sport Dog launcher. I use Lion Country Supply. If you guys like Lion Country Supply, call them, tell them V3 Gundogs, keep shooting them, giving them some props. We use their launchers and their backing dogs. But the launchers can definitely cause some problems. So definitely call somebody that has experience with them if you plan on using them.
Firsthand, I hit that beeper button with my dog, totally tuck and run, and it was...
Oh, we experienced it together.
Weeks.
We experienced it together.
Weeks of now fixing a problem because I made a mistake.
Did that happen with me the first time, or is it before?
It happened once before, but we saw that it was ingrained in her head.
She came into the launcher and she was like, fuck that launcher.
My dog's the opposite problem. You put a bird in a launcher and you go to work him on it. I don't know if he smells the launcher or he's training wise. There's no enthusiasm. There's a half-ass point. The tail's down.
Yeah.
He goes, okay, the bird's right. Like he's.
So I don't want to continue down another path because this could definitely bring us to a totally different. And we have another question.
5 minutes.
Oh, we got 5 minutes. We have 5 minutes, people. So I don't want to continue down this path and get because there's so much that goes on around these launchers. You have to keep your launchers clean because guess what? You put the bird in there. What does the bird do? Shit all the time.
Smell like bird.
And it smells like bird. And then the dogs lose interest over time. And guess what? Like my launchers, they're sitting in my garage, right? So you have all the odors of the garage seeping into the cloth, into the metal. Like everything is porous. So whatever you put that launcher around, that launcher is going to be exposed to the environment, so it's going to smell like that. So it's important to keep your launchers clean. And when you use them properly where it's always a surprise to your dog so your dog understands that there is some fun behind it. This way they don't go into these points, into the hunt, knowing that, oh, that's a launcher. I'm all right. I'm just going to stand here. And then you see no enthusiasm behind the hunt.
Do you make sure they're hidden and buried in the grass too so they really can't tell that they're
I do my best. Yeah, I mean, the nice thing about those LCS launchers is that they are painted green, so they kind of camouflage. I have used DT Systems, nothing against them. I'm just not a fan of the black paint because I personally think it sticks out.
Sure.
And it sounds like we're going to do a video on launchers because they're a great tool.
It sounds like a April video.
Sure.
So keep an eye out for that. If you're not subscribed already, subscribe, like the video.
We'll just do it then.
Hit the notification bell. But the last thing I want to say for our customers that come and train with birds on their own, if you're not training with a launcher, you have two options. You can throw the bird directly into the cover, or a lot of people sleep the bird. And just another caution when you're putting a bird to sleep is when you put the bird to sleep and you put it in the cover and you walk the 20 seconds back to your truck and you let your dog go, that bird is still dizzy.
Oh yeah. So think about you being shooken up. Like,
Yeah.
think about you
do
being,
the back trick and then
Pull the head,
and
tuck
then
the head.
yeah.
We grab the feet, pull the head.
That's
So I
a
just-
terrible way. You kill birds that way.
I just shake the bird, man. I just grab it from the behind.
13 spins.
13.
13?
Lucky number.
13 spins.
Dave listens.
But the point I'm trying to make here is if you dizzy a bird, that's fine. You need to give that bird time to get its balance back. Because we already had the issue that a bird wants to run. We try hard like heck to try to raise them so they take more flight, to prepare them for flight.
Sure.
And now you're dizzying them up. It's kind of counterproductive.
So do you want to mention
You
that?
got a question?
We have a question.
We have a question. Okay.
Yeah.
Question.
All right, good question. Adam, how about pigeon training?
Ooh.
I've done a bunch of work with Jeremy with pigeons, but had a hard time finding anyone who sold them. Will Stead Fast have pigeons for the 2022 season?
Got them right now. Come by.
I was going to say, you
Yeah.
saw
Do you guys
them
trap
right.
them under bridges and stuff?
No,
No.
not anymore.
We tried that.
Yeah.
Is that legal?
It is.
It is.
It is legal.
Yeah.
It's lucrative as well.
Oh, yeah.
Just for us, it's not the best because you're introducing a
Disease.
whole bunch of disease
Well, yeah,
to
you
the
don't want to bring
farm.
all that crap in. Yeah.
I mean, we even had dedicated nets, gear, a dedicated vehicle that was only for
You
that,
guys went all out.
and we still had problems bringing things back to the farm. It's just not productive. So we both fly in a pigeon racing club. I'm the president of the Torrington Racing Club.
That's
And,
kind of a good spot to start where, Adam's looking for some birds to train the dog on his own. Adam's very well educated. He spent a lot of time with me, so he understands, what is needed to be done with his dog in front of birds. And that's kind of where I got all my birds, right? Like my pigeons, 4 years ago, when I started out with you guys helped me out by communicating through your club members.
And it's a great thing about pigeons is that it is a lasting, renewable training resource for you.
Unless you have a hawk.
Yeah, well,
But so
It also
Jeremy,
takes
why
time.
pigeons?
it takes
Why
time
don't
to
you choose
build.
West Sheridan Torrington Racing Club Pigeon Facebook?
I don't think. Do we have a Facebook?
Yeah, well, I just shared one.
Sure. Well, listen.
There you go.
Aren't you the vice president?
I'm the president.
You're the president.
I run the Facebook.
Oh my God.
The club secretary takes care
I
of
was
the
gonna
Facebook.
say I used to be a member
Do
there.
you want to highlight real quick what the club does?
Yeah, I mean, well, we race pigeons. Is a pretty worldwide sport.
What do you do with the pigeons? We race them.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a lot bigger in other countries than it is in America, but it's gaining more popularity.
I was a member of that club when I was living in the area, and I do have to say it is nice being in that type of a community, especially if you are a person with a dog like yourself, Adam. Anybody else watching, definitely get involved with even if you don't have birds, call your local pigeon racing club.
Yeah.
Get involved with them because you'll learn a lot, and you'll find guys that just need to get rid of birds, and they will give them to you, and they would love giving you the birds and teaching you guys about their birds.
A lot of guys, if they know that they're going to somebody who's going to start a loft and going to breed the birds, and they're happy to have
So to answer that question, you guys do have pigeons for sale?
We got pigeons right now. If you want some, give me a call tomorrow.
Whatever, it's fine. It's normal.
So
my question is to Jeremy for a trainer. Why
because Dan
pigeons?
keeps cutting them off.
Yeah. Why pigeons? Why wouldn't you just use a quail or a chukar?
So the differences between the two, right? Pigeons, are they game birds? No, they're not. They're flying rats, right? I mean, we'll just, except for your racing birds. Sorry, Alex. I'm sorry.
Wild pigeons are as
Wild
rats
pigeons.
of the sky.
Rats in the sky, right? But they are the best. And the reason why I say that, especially for a pointing dogs, I wouldn't necessarily want to use them for the flushing dogs all the time, unless I'm trying to do one thing, steady work. The reason being is because of something that we've already talked about with the game birds. The game birds do what? They get up, they fly, they drop.
Yep.
What do the pigeons do? They get up, they fly the fuck away, and you won't see them for hours unless they drop to their loft. I know my birds here are literally trained to go in the sky and go to the loft. They will not fly around anywhere else. They literally go up, they go to the loft, and then I reuse them for the next client 30 minutes later. All right, so I only use the pigeons when we start doing steady work, meaning for pointing dogs, the dog needs to stand shot and flush. okay, allowing me to get in front of them. And the reason being is because we don't want the dog to have the ability or the wants to chase and catch.
Pigeons are also really good for wall on foot because of the loud wing clap.
Right.
Okay.
They're making a lot more
They come up-
noise. Yeah.
Right, just like a grouse would.
Yep.
In the north woods of Maine.
Yep.
Right. The
All right, so I shared in the comment section. You can repeat this because I don't think.
Yeah.
In the comments, I posted both your guys' websites, and if you guys just want to real quick, just do a final wrap up. You know, Stead Fast Farms, how to contact you, where to find you, what you guys have to offer. Same thing with Jeremy, and then we'll close this out. Do you have time to do a quick video after this to do this, or do you want me just to reshare this?
Either or.
We still got quite a to talk about.
I
We always
like
get
probably
these
like
things are always
another
longer than
hour
they're supposed to be.
do,
Yeah, we can see it.
I don't know
So-
what it's gonna look like finished.
So, just to wrap things up here on the live portion of this video, just because we have been on for an hour, I believe at this point.
Talk to me.
Any more questions?
Yeah,
It's the last call for
talked-
questions.
yeah, definitely chime in on your last call for questions here. But what I want to say is, number one, thank you guys for chiming in. We're going to wrap up this video because there's still a lot to talk about that we kind of just started tapping into. But I want to say, number one, thank you for Stead Fast Farms for coming out and giving their talk on the game birds. And definitely 100% thank you to DIT Outdoors for doing this video, squaring everything up for it, producing it, putting it on YouTube. They've been the backbone in putting stuff out there for not only V3 Gundogs, but Stead Fast Farms as
I don't
well.
know how they do it, but it's great.
Yeah. So I want to just pass things off to Alex and Jared here just to end things off, and then we'll continue this video recording and post it up as a finished product.
Yeah, so again, I'm Jared, Stead Fast Farms. We could talk about birds for hours. So whether you see in the video, you want to give us a call, we're happy to talk birds, bird work. If you're going to want to talk dogs, we both own hunting dogs. We'll give you a generic overview of what we did with our dogs, but we're always going to point you to V3.
Yep.
We've got a pretty good relationship with Jermey here, and his dogs speak for themselves. If you want to give us a call, 860-302-7847. It's going to ring one of our phones or both our phones. Just be patient. There's a recording there. We're probably out in the flight pens or getting poured on in the rain. But if we don't answer, leave us a voicemail and we'll get back to you. We get back to everybody. You can text us. We'll answer that way. We're on Google. We're on Facebook. And we're on Instagram, Stead Fast Outdoors.
Great. Thank you guys again. And
Thanks for having us.
just to tap in on the V3 side of things, www.v3gundogs.com, Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. Go in, follow all of those channels. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm going to start posting a little bit more videos as time goes on. Definitely give us a call if you have any questions. My phone is on 24/7. Even for non-clients, I will run you through any troubleshooting issues you're having with your dog. For me, the biggest important thing is making sure we're doing right by your dog and not just by you. Dogs are important to us and we want to push you down the right path.
All right, guys. So thanks for the video. As always, thanks for Dan. He's the backbone of this whole ordeal. It's all his equipment. It's all his knowledge from DIT Outdoors. Just go like and subscribe this video. Go to Facebook. Go to Instagram. Share V3 Gundogs. Share Stead Fast Farms. Go buy their birds. They're good birds. Go to Jeremy. Great trainer. Just enjoy the rest of your night. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Any questions, just email us. Dan will post an email address, or you'll just comment on this video and we'll go from there.
Thanks, guys.
Get out and walk with your dogs.